Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com. And today I have a very special guest. It's my friend, Evans Putman. How are you, Evans?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. We got the same haircut going on. So
we have the same barber. You know, that's awesome.
Yeah. Especially during this time, right, that we're in right now, the isolation and everything. I didn't have to worry about my hair growing out and getting too long.
Me neither. So I love it. You know, it's like people are talking about like, well, there's no barbers open. I'm like, well, I have mine, you know, in my restroom. So it's all good.
Exactly. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So no, that's awesome. So let me give a little bit of your background to our listeners and viewers, and then we can dive into the interview. So Evans helps purpose-driven entrepreneurs and change makers create profitable, impact-focused online business which align with their core values, serve their ideal customer, and turn their mission into movements. His 7-figure podcast blueprint gives high-tech coaches, consultants, course creators, and other expert entrepreneurs a proven system to turn a podcast into an automated traffic, leads, and sales machine. Evan is also a host of the Infinite Impact Radio podcast and a creator of the Infinite Impact Method. Wow, that's amazing. So I definitely want to dive into that because I think, when people are in that space of either podcasting or in the space of coaching, people sometimes fear. The one thing that comes to mind is, how can I monetize? How can I grow? How can I get more of those leads, right? And so definitely that's something that I want to touch on that. Before that, though, I want to know more about you in terms of where were you born, and just kind of give me a little bit of your upbringing.
Yeah, I was born, as you can probably tell from my accent, a little bit in the South, so South Carolina, and I've lived here a lot, and I actually lived out your way for a couple of years out in California in the Los Angeles area. So when I was younger, I did a lot of,
Nice.
I was a little restless. I lived in North Carolina, I lived in Florida, I lived out in California. It was fun to get to see different parts of the country, but I just never really could get settled down. And one place where I live now in Charleston, South Carolina, which is right on the coast, great historic town. If you look into history, we have a beautiful, beautiful city, lots of great restaurants, got the beach, got just a great place to live, to raise a family. And I've lived here now, I think this is my third time. So this is my final. I've sort of planted roots here for good, but because I kept coming back. And I was like, you know what?
Something was calling you back.
Exactly. So it's a great place to live.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And one thing that I know about you, and I've been watching you, is like you seem to be very successful. You seem to have a lot of things already above your shoulders, right? And I want to take that step back a little bit, because a lot of times people only see that side of it. They don't see the things that might have happened in the past, or the things that got you to this place. And one of the things that you went through personally was you had a interesting story with your father attempting to murder your mother and yourself at 15 years of age. So I want to talk about that, and I want to understand that, because again, that is something huge to overcome, and to be able to come out of that and then become who you are now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, actually, it happened about 15 years ago. So I wasn't 15 years of age. So I was closer. If I give away my age, I guess then I was in my 30s, right, when this happened. But but my upbringing, if you do go back to like 15 years of age, I had a discussion with somebody recently. I came from I guess upper middle class I didn't ever need anything, as far as food, shelter, anything like that. I wasn't spoiled, but I also wasn't wanting. The only thing that I didn't really have was a father that was connected in any kind of like emotional way with me. And, and what I learned as I got older and older, because one thing that you learn about the South that you always hear, there's always a lot of stories that families have. They have like a closet. I think everybody has this closet in their house where they keep these stories, and that story changes when it gets outside of their house. But my father had mental illness, what I discovered throughout his life. And as I got older, and it definitely affected me when I was younger, the non-support, the non-emotional. I mean, like at night he would come home, there was no conversation. He would show up at like my basketball games, but there was no like, hey, great game. No, the two of us shooting hoops outside together, none of that kind of stuff. And so it definitely affected me. And I think that sort of put me, I discussed how I was restless as I was younger. I was moving around. I always felt like I was looking for something and chasing something. And I actually had this, it's funny. I was watching something this morning with Michael Beckwith, who I'm not sure if you know who Michael Beckwith is. He's a spiritual guy out in California. I don't know a better way to describe him. I wish I could, but he was telling his story, and it reminded me a lot of mine, where he was doing all these things that were like a 180 degrees from where he is now. And it was similar to me. I was on a self-destructive path. I was just, wasn't really, I didn't take the job route. I always had the entrepreneur in me, I believe, because I tried to take regular jobs and always felt suffocated. So eventually, and we'll fast forward a little bit, but eventually I became a personal trainer. I started helping people. And then I got into online businesses about 20 years ago. So it was during a transition, something just weird had happened. And this was when I moved back here for the last time, and I was moving back to Charleston. And so in transition, I just happened to go stay at my parents' house. And while I was there for a few days, that's when this happened. Like, at the time, my father had lost his business. He was, he was disconnected from reality sometimes, and sometimes he was okay. But like, I woke up one morning and to just this blood curdling scream of my name. And the first time, how you come out of, you don't know if you're dreaming or not. So then I heard it again, and then it was like my hair was standing up, and I knew it was real. So I jumped out of bed to run downstairs. I heard the door slam and a car go pulling off, and my mom, there's like this claw hammer laying there on the ground. And my mother said she was sitting there having breakfast when he came up from behind her and just told her, like we're talking right now, just totally plain, like I'm getting ready to kill you, then I'm going to go upstairs and kill our son, and then kill the cat. And she got up and screamed and I guess brushed him back. And then when he heard my name, it sort of snapped him to reality. From that point forward, things just disintegrated with him and with us, to where he disowned me. I came out, he took me out of his will. He refused to have anything to do with me. And he ended up, just going down to this dark hole, and probably passed away, within a year. Because it was just, he wasn't there mentally. He had mental issues. And the thing is that, that you learn, if you've ever been through that, and for the people that are listening, what you learn is that, our systems out there are not equipped for these things. Like, when this happened, he gets, they ended up catching him. They took him for mental evaluation. He's able to just tell the doctors what they want to hear and just walk out the front door. And it's just like, what in the heck? And the thing that was sad is that I wanted him to be able to get the treatment that he needed, but without him being fully, engaged and compliant in doing that, they were just going to let him, go and do as he pleased, even though he needed to be in the hospital. So there was it was a big learning bulb, where my mom and I became really close. We had always been close. She always sort of sheltered me from a lot of this stuff. but it became where it almost flipped a little bit to where I became her support, and she became a little bit, I was more of her support than I ever had been before. It was almost like role reversal. But we became closer. We became better friends to where it became not as much a a mother-son thing, but more of a friend thing. And so in the end, it was life-changing, but it was something that I don't look at as being something bad that happened to me. I look at it as almost like, hey, it was a gift that was given to me to change my outlook, change my life, and to begin to start helping and serving other people at a higher level. And that really got me taking me from being a personal trainer to and I was a basketball coach too at the time, to actually sort of stepping up and being somebody who wanted to serve first. And instead of, and that sort of put the light bulb on and gave me the inspiration. Instead of feeling like I wanted to, go out and make a lot of money, I wanted to go out and help people, and the money was the byproduct of the service. So it was really useful. It was really useful in a lot of ways, and it was really just something that I wouldn't wish on anybody, but at the same time, it was a big instigator for positive change in my life. So I can't look at it as something that was a horrible, bad thing that happened. And we all came out of it alive, except for, he passed away a year later, but my mom's still doing great. I'm still doing great. And it's just one of those things, like, you can overcome anything. So there you go.
No, definitely. And there's a few things that I picked up from that I think are so critical. Before that, though, I want to ask, what were some things that you did to help you through that? Obviously, that's not something that might be that easy to overcome, right? Yet you did. And so what were some of the habits or the things that you were doing to help you overcome that challenge, that moment in life?
Yeah. Well, first, at first, like I said, my mother and I became closer, and we talked a lot more, and it got me to sort of uncover some of my feelings and speak them in ways that I didn't do before, because of the way I was brought up and because everything was sort of closed up. And so I became to speak more of my feelings, which that helped. But it was rough for a while. I mean, I had a lot of, bad moments and struggles. But then actually, this is at the time, probably about a year later, when I met my wife. At this time, I had not been married up until then. And turns out my wife and I actually went to high school together. She was a couple years younger than me. I dated her sister in high school a couple times, who was, I think, 1 year younger than me. So we didn't really know each other that well, but we had friends that knew, like a mutual friend that was like, between the two of you, you guys are like, you have to meet. So that changed. And I think because I went through this, it gave me the opportunity to where I was open to sharing and having somebody else in my life, where before I wasn't. So then, we probably within a year, we had our daughter, that's been just a huge blessing for me. And the other thing I'd share with people is that, if I wouldn't have gone through what I went through in the past, it wouldn't have given me like a roadmap for how not to be as a father. So now that is priority number one for me, is to be the best, supportive, most compassionate, loving father I can be for her. And so it's a lot different than, my upbringing. So between those things, those would be more, definitely helping. And then also getting into the entrepreneurial world, getting around other people. I met a group, I got into a coaching group with some people, and I finally met people who sort of felt like me when it came to business and about serving, about working for yourself, that you had a calling that was more than just going to a 9-to-5, that you were meant to do something to impact the world. And that getting in that group was really, really helpful. And then the last thing I'll mention is from there, meeting these people, getting around that kind of tribe, which, leveled me up in so many ways. It also brought me to focus more on myself and start a morning routine that, included meditation, taking care of myself, doing gratitude every morning. And as I discussed on a podcast too, it was during this time that I actually sat down and finally forgave my father. Even though he was not here to hear it, I was like, okay, it's time to just really focus on and like let that out. So I forgave him for everything. And then I also forgave myself for what I'd done in the past. And, because sometimes we beat ourselves up like, well, I've made all these great discoveries. I'm here now. Why did I screw it up so much before I got here? And it's like, well, if you wouldn't have screwed it up then, you probably wouldn't have gotten here. So you got to give yourself some grace and forgiveness too.
Yeah, no, I love that. And the things that you had mentioned earlier, from pain, and when you see it from that perspective, from pain became a purpose, became an idea, became something that you are now doing. And I love what you mentioned. You said the gift of giving, that was given to you. So instead of you seeing that as something so much as a negative aspect or maybe a failure in your life, it was a gift given to you. And so to me, when I think of that, is I believe that it comes down to a couple of things. Number one is being able to start seeing things from a different perspective, with a different lens, and really seeing it with a different mindset, right? And so I want to touch on that in a little bit. And then the second thing you talked about is serving first. And a lot of times, even on the entrepreneurial journey, when you begin, is mostly about me, and you forget about everybody else instead of serving other people. So, I think that's critical. Zig Ziglar said, if you give everyone what they want, then you will get whatever you want, right? So you're serving first, and you're going to get in return all that you want. So
yes.
the gift of giving to be given to you is a mindset. It's a different type of mindset. So how critical is that for you to have that positive mindset, to focus on your mind, to put the right programs into your mind, to really just embrace a different aspect of life?
It's huge. I mean, and it's something that I'm learning every day, obviously, and I have to reinforce every day. And that's why I think a morning routine is so critical. But it's funny because I found myself over the past few months sort of low on energy, not feeling so great, not being so motivated. And I was trying to be like, well, the time we're talking now, you and I are discussing, we're sort of coming out of the lockdowns.
Yep.
We've had, the police things happening, the Black Lives Matter movement, all these things, like all these huge changes in not just our lives individually, but in the whole world. I mean, worldwide, things are like going crazy. So not crazy in a bad way, but I mean, just change crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sort of brought me sort of down a little bit. And I was reading something and listening to a podcast. And this is what I do, is I always try to read something spiritual in the morning, listen to something uplifting and learn it, not necessarily business wise, but more personal development wise. And I heard that, and it was literally probably about 3 weeks ago when I heard that, and they were talking about the gift that you're given, and looking at things as a gift and being willing to receive them, even if they don't feel like it's something great that's happening. It's still a gift, and you have the decision to decide how you're going to receive that gift. Am I going to receive it by shrinking in and complaining and moaning and groaning, or am I going to look at it in a different way and be like, hey, maybe this is given to me because I need to go a different direction than I'm going. Maybe I need to find a way around what I'm doing. And I think that when I did that, it sort of changed my mindset totally over the past few weeks, and things started. The amazing thing is that when I accepted that and I said, I'm open to receiving this gift and using it in a positive manner, things started happening. You and I, before we jumped on, we were discussing something that I was doing. That person came to me, reached out to me out of the blue and was like, hey, I've got this thing. Would you like to do this? And I'm like, yes. Then I had something else happen that was like, boom, perfect. It was like all these little breadcrumbs were being dropped. And if I wouldn't have gotten myself into that positive mindset, I would have missed all those signs and signals. I would have been likely to say maybe no, or let me think about it. Instead, I was just like, yes, I want to do this. Yes. And it's been a game changer. So it's huge. It's definitely huge.
I love that. And I think that a lot of the foundation is really continually working on your mind. I think that's something that we all need to do, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. It doesn't matter. That's one of the biggest foundations. And I always said that the biggest asset you have is that which is between your 2 ears, which is your mind. And so when you empower your mind, you can empower your life. So yeah. I want to talk about your entrepreneurial journey, right? You've done a lot of great things in your journey. And one thing that I'm very fascinated by is your podcast, and how you were able to grow that podcast to like literally a seven-figure, a business, right? So let's talk about that journey. How do you get involved with that? And then give me more of how the ideas came about in creating what you've created.
Well, it's funny is because here is a great story about a gift being given to me, because at the time when that whole part of my journey started, I was working as a consultant, like a freelance marketing strategist consultant, helping people. And I was doing really well, but I was working a lot of hours. And as I look back on it now, I was like, okay, I wasn't giving a lot of my energy and presence to my family like I really wanted to. So I started getting burnt out. I started getting tired. But at the same time, my wife, who had been working, she was managing a nice restaurant at night. I was working in the day. We were raising our young daughter. It was really tiring and we weren't connecting. So I was like, hey, I'm making enough money now. Why don't you come home? Within a week, because I had been lazy with filling my pipeline, I don't know what happened, but the universe just came in and said, sorry, I lost every client except for one. And that one was giving me like about $200 a week. Wow. So that was not going to pay our bills. Yeah. So I sort of got a little stressed out when it all sort of hit me. And then the next day I woke up, I was like, you know what? I've been able to go out and find clients before. Just go out, be positive, go do it. So that's when I reached out, started looking, and I had this person reach out to me. And it was something that I was like, this is not really something that I do. It was mainly like a writing gig. Like, can you help write some blog posts for my podcast? Mm-hmm. I was like, I used to do this like 5 years ago. I didn't like my pay scales were way ahead. I was like, but you know what? There was something that said, take this opportunity. So I said, yes, let's talk. Turns out we lived literally, there's a peninsula. Charleston's a peninsula. Okay. So on one side of one river, he lived on like by the beach over there. I live on the other side of the peninsula on the north side. And we just were like, wow, out of everybody in the world, we live right here. So we met in person, and I'll sort of fast forward, but it turned out he started telling me things about what he was wanting to do, what his desires were. And I was like, this is so much more than just writing a blog post. This is actually what I do, build a strategy for this. And he happened to have a podcast. And I was like, well, I've never really worked with a podcast before, but I know I can grow. I've grown all these other online businesses for people. I know I can do it. It's just marketing. I just got to figure out different angles and, test things. And we jumped in and started working together. And within like the first 3 months, we grew that to 75,000 listeners, averaging a month. And then within another 6 months, we gotten it to 150,000 plus. Wow. And all along, I was just, I was taking action, trying new things. He was a great host, so I can't give it. He was the podcast host. I was sort of the guy behind the curtain running the strategy, the marketing strategy, the sales strategy. And he connected well. He was really focused, and he became more than just somebody I was working with. He became a mentor of mine, because I watched how he was so giving and serve first. And, in the past, I'd had a lot of businesses that never really grew over a certain point. I couldn't get over the hump. And it was like what you said, I was really focused more on the hour, the dollar, those types of things. He was focused on, I'm giving everybody as much value as I can to help them, achieve something. And I saw something for the first time. I was working with a client that was very impact focused, very serve first focused. So we took that. We ended up building a complete system that generated leads through that podcast. And the thing that was great working with him is we had ideas. We would just try them. Mm-hmm. We didn't care if they failed or not. We just let's just try it. And we try it. And we failed a lot of times. But then when things worked, we would just keep going and going. And we created a new opportunity for capturing leads and cultivating those leads into customers so that he didn't even have to sell. Because when we tried to sell through the podcast, it didn't work. All he focused on was getting great guests, doing great interviews, providing immense value to the listeners. And then we let the system do the rest. And, within the first 12 months, we realized we haven't used any paid ads. We didn't use anything like that. The podcast itself took us from 0 to $500,000 in digital course sales that first 12 months. And then it was from there where it continued to grow. And eventually I left to go do my own thing. And he decided he wanted to go do something else. But because of what we had created, we had actually created a scalable, sellable business that he had people approach him and say, would you sell this to me? Because they saw the potential in it, because we had built a list, and that list had cultivated into our best buyers. So they were like, guys, you guys have an audience. You guys have a list. We want to buy that. And so they offered him a nice sum of money to buy it. And he actually, the funny thing I'll tell you is that this guy is so cool. He's a multimillionaire. He's a great guy, retired when he was like 46. He's a few years older than me, but after he sold the podcast, his dream was to be a pedicab driver in downtown Charleston.
Wow.
Because he wanted to just get out. He loves talking to people, and he wanted to get out and drive around and talk to people. So that's what he did, and we were able to take that podcast and turn it into an actual business that you could then sell. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs sort of miss that mark when they think of their podcast as, maybe a branding play or a way to, some of them actually feel it's more of like a sales job or a tool that they use to sell things. We looked at it totally different. We looked at it as the core of our business, because if we could create the right message that would attract the right people, and then cultivate them through this whole process of getting to know, like, and trust you through the podcast, through the way you over deliver, through your the things you offer them lead wise and sales wise, that they became like lifetime customers that stuck around with us. And a lot of them became like, we're the kind of fans and customers that would go out and promote for you and tell other people about you. So it just turned into an amazing experience. And if you look back at it again, look at how it all happened.
Yeah.
Something like, it could have been a disaster where I could have just gone into shutdown mode and we would have never connected. But because at the time, and it really, I mean, I'm giving myself a little high five here, but at the time I was more about like, oh my gosh, I need to go find another client because I got to get some more income coming in. But,
right.
But I also didn't look at it as the way it, of being an obstacle that was going to pull me down, that was going to weight me down. I took that sort of loss of all those clients and just went with it. And it, it was provided to meet the right person at the right time and be in the right place. So, I mean, always be open to possibility, always be open to keeping your eyes out for signs and signals, because they're out there for you.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love that story. And just, again, looking back to, even your experience with your dad, this experience here, you lose it all. Your wife leaves her job. You had all these clients, and all of a sudden you lose everything. And again, overcoming that's again, a true testament of overcoming something. And part of that was the fact that you continue to be persistent, right? And I think that in this business of an entrepreneurship, you gotta continue to be persistent, even on the very down moments, and coming up with ideas, right? Like just throwing as many ideas out, and whatever's gonna stick, you stick with that, and you continue to do it. Like Edison, all those different people that failed so many different times, they just didn't give up on that first failure. They continued to do it, and that was one of the things that you did. The other thing that I like is, and I want to get your take on this. Except your friend here, he decided to start driving because that was fulfilling for him. That became that success for him. So how do you define success? Because a lot of people want to measure success based on monetary value. Clearly, that I don't think that's the case. Even with your friend, he didn't do that, right? I mean, he had all the money in the world. He didn't have to go do that. Yet his success or his idea was probably, hey, let me just go drive around, and do that.
Yeah.
So how do you define success?
It's funny because it goes back to my father again. If we look at it, I was so against being in business per se and making a lot of money, because at the time I sort of connected that to him and the way that happened. So now that I've sort of detached that and I see so many, and I'm blessed to be around so many people like my past business partner. I mean, because at first I was hired, we eventually became business partners, but he became a mentor. And then I would see through the podcast, the people that he knew, some of them I connected with and the way they served first. And then I got into these coaching programs, Russell Brunson's coaching program, and met so many other great entrepreneurs who did that. And I really look at it as the people that you change their lives is the success. And that's one of the reasons that I came up with Infinite Impact Radio, is because I wanted to share successes of other people, because I knew that everybody has a voice. And if people can hear the success stories of other people and see that ripple effect that they're having, then they will sort of get the courage to be like, you know what, I've got something in me that needs to be shared. I have a gift that needs to come out there. And a lot of times, and that, if you step back just a step further, I think the first time I really became like, I connected the dots between entrepreneurs and changing people's lives was the first time that my business partner and I went to Funnel Hacking Live. That was Russell Brunson's ClickFunnels event. And every person on stage that came out there were, you know, these were multi-million-dollar entrepreneurs. And all they talked about was the tribe that they had built and the people's lives they had changed, that they had created movements. And these movements of people, it had totally changed, you know, their lives, and then changed the lives of those people that they know, their families. And it just keeps going in the ripple and the ripple. And that's when it sort of hit me. And that became the point where I started saying, you know what, it's time for me to sort of separate myself from this really successful thing we've created and go my own way, because that was his mission and his movement and his people that he wanted to change lives of. And I was like, if I can take what I learned from there and go out and share it and give people the opportunity to change other people's lives, then that inspired, that gave me the inspiration and makes me feel successful. Somebody actually asked me, they were like, well, are you shooting for a 2 Comma Club award, which is, you know, the award they give away at ClickFunnels if you get $1 million in your funnel? And I told them, I mean, without even thinking about it, I mean, I'm being 100% authentic. I was like, no, I'm hoping I can get 100 people their 2 Comma Club awards. Because I know, and it's something you mentioned earlier, actually, if you can serve and help these other people, it's going to come back to you. And I've seen it in the past. The seed was planted when I was a personal trainer and started changing people's lives, and I could see it in their eyes and the way their whole family life and everything changed as they got healthier mentally and physically. And now I've just sort of taken that, what I learned back then, and put it into business. And it's like, okay, if I can focus on that, that's what's going to make me feel successful, feel inspired, and keep me going every day, knowing that there's somebody out there that I can help.
Yeah. I love that. And one thing that you mentioned is Russell Brunson's network and community. I believe a lot on those kind of communities, just because I feel like you find many different people that kind of have the same purpose or the same mission as you. And, you know, at the end of the day, they want to be able to help out and kind of just create ventures with you. What will be your message when it comes down to, you know, that phrase, the average 5? That, you know, the average 5 that you hang around with, you still become that. What is your message on that?
Yeah, I agree with it 100%. And it's funny because I actually heard somebody discussing that this morning before we jumped on the podcast. And I thought about that because just I'm excited about this, and I sort of took a leap forward in my entire path. Just day before yesterday, I committed and was invited to be in somebody's inner circle program, somebody who has made, you know, multiple tens of millions of dollars in the entrepreneurial world. So it was sort of a big investment into myself, but it was also a big leap of faith. But I knew there's only 60 people that are ever going to be in this program, no more than that. That's all he takes, because he works with you personally. But I knew, I was like, okay, every step of the way that I've done that I've moved into a bigger, you know, sort of arena with more successful people around me that are doing more than me, it's helped me grow more. Personally, it's helped. I mean, my family life is better from joining the coaching programs and things like that. So I knew, I was like, at first it was sort of like, okay, this is a lot of money. And then it was like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's a chance. I remember telling somebody I left what was a really huge opportunity when I was with my partner, is we were climbing monetarily. And at that time I was a partner. So I was getting, I was profit share and all that. I left that because I felt like I needed to play bigger, because I had a bigger purpose to serve, not because of my ego, but I felt a calling pulling me towards this thing. And I was like, you know what? It's time to do that again, and to get into a group of people that are so far ahead of me, but will pull me up and will support me along the way. So I think that it's humongous. And I think, you've probably discovered this with your podcast, and I have with my podcast. That's how you and I met, was through a podcast. Right. And I tell everybody, if you can at least go on podcasts, but to start a podcast as well, if you're an entrepreneur and sometimes you feel disconnected, it is the best connection and the best way to meet other people, to share your story, to hear their story. And you start getting bonds, and that, there's people out there that are going through the things that you're going through. So it's definitely helpful on both levels, to level you up and to support you. So I think those groups are vastly important.
Yeah, no, I love that. One thing that I want to touch on, and you talked about this in your message, is the importance of rising to your authentic self. Is once you live 100% authentically, you will uncover and unleash your why, your purpose. And that's pretty much, what you're talking about, taking that leap of faith of leaving that business venture with your business partner, to take your own leap of faith, and understanding what was your why and your purpose, that calling, whatever it is that you have now, right? So how do you come about that, and how do you find that? Even with your message here, is like, if I'm an entrepreneur, how did I know that there's maybe a different calling or a different purpose, or how can I find my why or my purpose?
Yeah, well, I think for me, I don't have a 100% sure answer, because I ask myself this all the time. Am I going down the right path? And I've asked other people who I feel, and that you go back to the people you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with people who are, doing that, and you get the opportunity to ask them questions like that, a lot of times what I've been told is, if you feel like inspired, like if you start doing something and you feel like just this energy and it's pulling you through, and you want to do it, doesn't matter if you hadn't slept for 3 days, you're going to have the energy to do it, because you feel this inspiration, you're lit up, you feel the emotion, everything is more heart-centered rather than like thought-centered, so you feel the emotions. That is something that you can tell you're on the right path. When you start to, like what I was telling you earlier, over the past few months, because generally somebody taught me once, take the news app off your phone, quit looking at the news, quit doing things, quit feeding the wrong kind of energy into your body. But then when we had the COVID thing happen and all these things, I found myself on the news because I wanted to keep updated, but I also felt myself getting pulled into that. And I could feel my energy levels go down and my, emotional level go down. And that was a sign that, hey, you need to, get your energy to a higher place and get, which I think is also important with a group. And if you find a group and you find people that you're serving, your customers, your clients, whoever it is, and you feel excited about it and you want to serve them and you feel that higher vibration of energy, you just sort of know you're doing the right thing. And I'll go back one last example, because I don't remember when. I was just thinking about this the other day, but when I was a personal trainer, I would take on some clients. When I bought my first house, it's like I got a mortgage to pay. So I would fill up my book with clients. And I got to that point where I was focused on client, dollar, instead of like the actual person that I was working with. But I would still have, like, let's say out of 8 clients, maybe 2, 3 of them that when they walked through the door, or when I knew that they were coming up next, I felt inspired. I felt this energy. I was excited. Didn't matter if it was the end of the day. I was excited to see them. you know what, that I knew that was my purpose, to serve those people. And those were the right clients. So it's similar, with your job, with your clients, whatever, you can feel that energy vibration. And I think that points you in the right direction if you pay attention to it.
Yeah, no, awesome. So Evans, I have a couple more questions for you before I let you go. If people wanted to connect with you, where can they find you?
Probably just come on. Facebook's the best place to find me right now. Just go look, Evans Putman. There's two of us on there. One of them's my page. One of them's me. So it's
Okay.
EVANSPUTMAN. A lot of people get the M and the N backwards. So it's Putman.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, come find me on Facebook, shoot me a message, and, let's be friends. And I'm always open to meeting new people, definitely. And if you have a cool story, definitely reach out to me, because as you and I were discussing earlier, I'm getting ready to relaunch my podcast and put more focus on it. So I'm going to be telling a little bit more of my story and my journey, but I'm still going to be bringing on amazing guests like yourself, Cesar, when you came on. So
awesome.
Definitely reach out to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then talking about your program, your 5 steps to create predictable podcast profits on AutoPilot. You want to touch a little bit on that and how you help other entrepreneurs?
Sure. Well, as you and I'm a firm believer in podcasts, for one, not just because of the networking, not just because of the audience building, but I believe it's an amazing way to get your message out there, your message that you have inside you, your gift, to the people that need to hear it. So if I created that document that you're talking about. It's actually a downloadable document, and it's a perfect place to start. I was just looking down to make sure I got the right address, but if they go to podcastsalesfunnels.com/steps, so it's podcastsalesfunnels.com/steps, you can download that. And what that is that gives you the 5 steps that we used, part of our system that we used to quickly get to $500,000 that first year without ads, and then to turn that into a 7-figure business. So I explained too a little bit about the mindset, about why you should focus on monetizing your podcast, how you need to use the right messaging to attract the right ideal clients and customers so that you are at the right vibrational energy level. And when you attract these right people and you over deliver and serve them in the right way, they become lifelong fans and lifelong customers. So you don't have to get on that treadmill of constantly trying to find another sale. You can just serve. Yeah. So that's all sort of laid out in that freebie. So
awesome. Well, thank you for that. That's awesome. And then you've given us a lot of great tips. So hopefully I can get one more out of you. And let's say that some of our listeners or viewers are going through some sort of challenge in their life right now. What would be one advice that you can give them that they can start putting in practice to overcome that challenge?
Oh gosh, I would say probably the biggest thing for me is, besides the entire morning routine, is just, find a place to get quiet and meditate. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day, just quiet your mind in any way you can, because you will get direction. And I'm not going to say it comes from this religious belief or that religious belief or whatever. But if you quiet your mind on a regular basis and get in the present moment, that you'll just find direction. You'll find peace. And if you can find that, even for just those few minutes a day, it'll help you make better decisions. And it'll help, you'll also get some guidance as well along the path. So I would definitely say that's probably the biggest thing for me. Yeah,
I love that. Evans, anything else that you want to share before I let you go?
No, I just appreciate you letting me on here. And it's nice to actually talk to somebody and see somebody, because, I'm still doing this social isolation thing. So,
I know, yeah, it's crazy.
It is. But definitely I would tell everybody, just believe. I'll leave you like one last thing that somebody asked me, because it was, I think the one thing everybody needs to understand is that, we look at somebody like Tony Robbins, right? And if on my podcast cover art, I have like a pebble being dropped in the water with the ripples coming out. And we all think, like somebody like Tony Robbins, I'm not him. What kind of positive effect can I have in the world? But if you look at it, it doesn't matter if Tony Robbins, who's got this big, huge boulder, when he drops it in the water, it creates ripples. If you drop the tiniest little pebble in the water, guess what else it does? It creates ripples. So it doesn't matter how small you think your gift is or your message is. If you feel like you've got a calling, then get out there and share it with people. Even if it's 1 or 2 people in your neighborhood, that difference you make is going to make the difference. That person that you affect is then going to have an effect on somebody else. So it creates a positive ripple effect and changes the world. So I would just tell everybody, don't be afraid to get out there and, just share your gift as much as you can.
I love that. I love that. That definitely, no matter how big or how small, you can definitely make a difference in this world. So I love that.
Yes.
Evans, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you coming onto the show.
Thank you, Cesar. I appreciate it.
Yep. And for the rest of you guys, please do me a favor. Make sure that you check us out on your favorite podcast platform. And please comment and share this podcast. And I'll be waiting for you at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything. Have a good day. Bye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R. Espino. Once again, thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.